for this gathering, Father, of people. I ask that you allow us to be agreeable, even if we have to disagree. I ask that you allow us to come to understanding and come to some unity. And that you allow us to take the information that we receive today, back out into the workplace, share it, disseminate it, and encourage someone else to come. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will Stewart stand and be recognized, please? Starting from the back.
Miracle Long Medical Center. Jake Harrison, I believe.
Prayer Bless OSU Medical Center.
Lynn Corner, student life.
Jeff Keith, through life.
Secretary of State.
Thank you so much. The recording secretary is not here, therefore minutes are not available from April. I need a motion from the floor that the minutes be read when the secretary is here or not next month. I have such a motion. Lynn Cornegate. Move. Second. Kevin Key, second. Need that motion. All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye. Aye. I oppose, same sign, please. Thank you. You should have a treasurer's report before you. February and March. February and March, please review. Hearing none, I need a motion from the floor to accept it as it's been presented. Do I have such a motion? Miracle Long, is there a second? Lynn Cornegate. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Miracle Long. We're going to have a short, if you would, David, short convention report from David Gutierrez. Did I say that right? Gutierrez, is that right? Okay. On the convention, it was David's first, and he had a particularly, I think, reasonable experience. David, you want to talk about that for a minute or two? I didn't tell him we were going to do this, so. Well, I just told him.
Well, as you said, really wasn't prepared for this, but in the district meeting, we did vote for our newly elected Vice President, Linda Hanson. So she was elected. And she was uncontested, so there was no problem with that whatsoever. And actually, some people actually wanted to vote on that right away during the district meeting, even though they said we were going to vote during the actual convention. Frank Matthews, which is administrative director, he was doing the majority of the meeting until Linda Hinton got elected. And quite a few things were actually talked about during the convention, and the main thing was a big battle between the East and the West, in manner of speaking. It was it was mainly between a battle between AT&T and Verizon, thank you. As to, they're trying to combine the communication area into one and have like one representative in manner of speaking, or one vice president to cover the whole area. And there was an issue about that because one side feels that that would be too much for one person to have, and they feel that it should be more of a larger committee versus one vice president representing them. So that's one of the biggest issues that they had. There were several issues that were talked about. Civil rights and equality. Let's see. One of the things that was brought up was that the CWA healthcare helped the LGBT people in that area. There was no actual direct answer at that time. But the civil rights and equality passed. Another issue was the Women's Committee, which, like I said, once again, I wasn't prepared, so I just put that the issue was passed. There is a new committee that they had started. It's called the Next Generation. And Jake, which is the vice president on that area committee, got up on stage and talked about, and Next Generation is primarily for the younger generation of CWA, and they're aiming more towards the 35 and under, and they're trying to get more of the younger people involved with the CWA. And most of us already know that it's the older generation that gets more involved. So that's something that they're trying to change with this committee. So they've been pushing that a lot. And it seems to be actually working out. There was a pretty good crowd around their booth outside. On Tuesday, they had a little rally in front of the AT&T building because of all the people that they're trying to lay off by getting rid of all of their jobs. So there was a good crowd that was out there, and several members from the convention showed up for that. And so that was actually a pretty good rally. Also on Tuesday, the president of CWA swore in Linda as the District 4's vice president. main stage. That was pretty good. One of the other things that they were bringing up was that CWA, we need to try to get more people involved with the whole union itself, as CWA has diminished from previous years. And I was trying to find, I thought I wrote it down in here somewhere, but it was a dramatic drop. I believe it went something from 150.
I think it went to 150,000 from, I think, 300,000.
Yeah.
I think the national thing was...
Yeah, it was roughly about 50,000 people who left. So that is another issue that they brought up, is that we need to try to get more people into the union itself. There are some other committees, or they're trying to start other committees in other areas to go ahead and join the union. One of them was in New York that just recently became part of CWA. And that basically started with, I believe there was 2 to 3 people that had gotten fired. And then they went ahead and started fighting to get their jobs back. And that's how that became about, was it just took 2 to 3 people voicing their, that they needed some representation versus the corporation getting rid of their jobs.
I think that was Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and I think it was Comcast, cable.
Yep, that was it. Okay.
Uh-oh, $5? $5. He just ran out the door.
And because also, on another thing, because we have been losing people, there is a program that they're trying to start, and it's built to 15 million strong. Obviously that is a goal that's way out there, but that's what they're calling, is built to 15 million strong. And by that, there was also a president of another union that went up on stage on Tuesday and voiced that they are considering becoming part of CWA. And
It said TWU, transport worker, did not...
transport workers.
Here in Columbus, that would be at least CODA. I'm not sure who else they represent in Columbus, but CODA.
Yeah, that was brought up, that they're seriously considering going with CWA. So that would help out both sides as to getting a little bit stronger due to the fact that we've lost over 50,000 members. One other thing that was brought up at the, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth from the main convention to the district, but on the district meeting, Linda did talk about if there were some issues about vouchers not being looked at properly, and the district was just writing out vouchers left and right. So now they're going to be looking at vouchers a lot more closely as to what they're spending money and what the money is actually for, and whether the money is being spent wisely or not. So apparently that has been a big issue, and once again, Linda Holt, the vice president, had talked about that at the district meeting.
Hinton? You said Linda Hinton?
Hinton. All right, yeah. There's several other motions. Actually, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were 6 other motions, all passed. The majority of them passed without any issues. And hopefully within the next meeting, we'll have a little rundown on that, what those motions were. And that's basically all I got for right now.
Okay. You want to talk a little bit about, since it was your kind of personal experience?
When we first got there, I did go to the orientation, which was an hour long, and when I talked to Rich about that, he was saying that when on his first convention, he was not allowed to go to the orientation, but during the orientation, it was actually kind of interesting because I did learn quite a bit what was going to happen at the actual convention as to what mics were for, where there's one mic make motion, another one that's for, one for the end, another one for questioning, things like that. But all in all, actually it was pretty good for myself. I did network quite a bit. Rich can because every time he saw me, I was always talking to somebody, and I was always somewhere. And there were quite a few people that I got to meet, and I'm still talking to several of them via email. I introduced myself to Linda Hinton, and even before she got elected, and once she got elected officially, once again I introduced myself, and I ran into her a couple times. Got to meet Jerry Schaefer. He's the assistant to the vice president in our district. Got to talk quite a bit to Frank Matthews throughout the whole convention. He's the administrative director. Got to meet Christina Pace. She's Pride at Work for CWA Pride. Got Chris Kennedy, he's the Human Rights Committee. Gloria Llanos, she's also Pride to Work, CWA, and she's part of the LGBT caucus. And of all places to meet somebody from my hometown that was just like my mother, I got to meet Yolanda Sanchez, and she is Secretary of Retired Members. And she's out of El Paso, Texas. And it was just like staring at my mother, talking to my mother when she was a lot younger. Kind of weird. But anyway, but like I said, all in all, it was pretty good. And hopefully I'll be able to get all this information together. Like I said, I got a whole bunch of notes.
I think that, thank you, David, thank you. I think that what we'll do is the next issue of the newsletter will probably be really filled with convention report. We have 2 video presentations we're going to try to have for the next meeting. One is regarding privatization of public works. The other is regarding generally the state of the economy and privatization and its effect. And we have a little information regarding public pensions. So we're going to try to have that ready by the next meeting to do at least those 2 videos and sort of a written report. In fact, David met at least 3 Texans from the city of El Paso. So he met at least 3 that are also CWA members. It wouldn't have happened maybe otherwise, but it was incidental, and he enjoyed it a lot, and I thought that was pretty cool that he was able to do that. And so it was quick, is one of the shortest ones. Cynthia was able to save us something like about $1,000 on the accommodations as far as staying, because they hadn't sent out a full itinerary. And so we had to do some things on the road, not on the road, but on the run. And Cynthia was able to cut down that bill by about $1,000 or more from where we were. And so it enabled us to cut the cost down on the trip entirely. 2 days, started Sunday with registration. We went from like 8:30 on Sunday to about 4 o'clock. Monday went from about 8:30 to 5 o'clock. And Tuesday, which was supposed to probably end at noon, went to about 3:30. Excuse me, went to about 3:30. So it was a really quick convention. Normally, well, years and years ago, it used to be a 5-day event. Now it's down to about a 2-day event. And they're only really supporting the locals about 1.5 days of those 2 days. That's why Sunday is a day, and Wednesday is supposed to be a half day, but it was a very long day. As David said, the telecommunication, Verizon, AT&T, were sort of in a controversy about having a vice president of the telecom industry. One person to settle all disputes from the National Executive Board. We are, or District 4 is, really the germ of that dispute. My past vice president made a decision during bargaining for his 5 states, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin. Is that 5? That's 5. Yeah, his 5 states, that some of the other, East Coast, and which is New York and New Jersey, and West Coast, which is mostly California, weren't particularly happy. And they weren't particularly happy about the fact that he didn't engage them in their considerations in the bargaining for his 5 states. So the real dispute is they didn't want they wanted a way to not have one vice president kind of push against the others, you know. But the body rejected the idea of a single telecom president that was over the whole country. A single union telecom president was over the whole country. So the body rejected that idea about 4 times. They kept bringing it back and kept bringing it back. And so what they're going to do is have a bargaining council that would include all the vice presidents on those subjects that would be of a national effect. And even after they voted to do that, or the body voted to do it, you still have members who wanted to do something different, which was bring one vice president for the whole telecom industry in the nation. It was rejected at least 4 times. And in a convention that's only like 1.5 day long, that's a lot of times. And so the body had to vote on it all those times, over and over and over. And they rejected it 4 times. It was really interesting. But those people were really hard-pressed on that. Anybody who's met Seth, and some of you have, he was a very strong-willed sort of individual. And while I'm certain he was given to pressure at times, he wasn't given to pressure by that group. And so they had sort of a strong resolve not to have one vice president be able to sort of direct by, I guess, ripples, the effect of the whole thing. So the body rejected it. They kept coming up. Our district is, was the bad guy. We're really the bad guys. District 9, which is California. District 1 and 2, which is New York, New Jersey, like Connecticut. They were really interested in not having a set-like person. They wanted that person to have another supervisor other than the national president. But the body really went against that. So we had to really represent sort of District 4 in that dispute. And it was quite controversial. Locally, we are about to, and that sort of erosion of general membership in the country, in our 5 states. Particularly, it's depressing, really. If the tide turn is going to be in sort of a decades-long arc. It's not going to happen in a year, and it's not going to happen in a year and a half. The local suffers the same sort of situation with the declination of membership. Some of our smaller units have gotten smaller. This unit erodes probably weekly to some degree. And if it's going to turn around, it's not going to be overnight. And the one thing that we have to sort of concentrate, and the thing that the leadership is concentrating on really, is trying to hold steadfast so that we're prepared to go forward and try to kind of cut the tide of the erosion while we still push forward. We won't operate out of a position of defeat. We'll operate out of a position of inspiration, hope, and fight. That's what we have to do. The attack is fully on, and Kevin is about to talk about right to work, which Michigan, I think, and Indiana have fallen to of late, which really, really diminishes our effect on workers as a whole. In those states, it's quite evident, and now Ohio is full gear to do those same things. So what they've done differently than SB 5 is they separated private and public. But the attack is for the state. So there is a bill out there somewhere that talks about right to work state and the erosion of rights and bargaining power for private sector. And there's a bill out there that talks about public sector doing the same for both. And so if one fails, they hope to go to make the other float. My thought is that they want, if the private fails, that's fine. They think they can be successful public workers because they're still pumping that we make too much money, we get too much time off, we got too many benefits, which we know is a straight distortion of the truth. And so what we'll have to do is the same as with SB 5, is you have to start to tell your family members, the ones that you don't even like, that may still feel some familial connection, and say, hey, this is bad, and you need to tell your voting children, cousins, uncles, sisters, brothers, you need to start to do that again, just like SB 5 says, I need your vote. Local leads. We're about to start to negotiate 3 other contracts. Pickaway County Job and Family Services will begin soon. Their expiration date is June. The Faculty Club, I think they have an expiration date of December. And Franklin County Veteran Service Officers who have an expiration in December, but we need to start them particularly early to try to get through them and get the best stance on it. So I'll be particularly busy because I'll be chairing those 3 committees. Hopefully, they won't all want to meet on the same day. Hopefully. But in the case that it kind of happens, our attorney, Mike Moses, and our EVP, Kevin Key, will be assisting in that juggling of doing those things. We're still battling and having issues in the medical center regarding the private contractor that runs environmental services. The joint sort of affiliation between FOD and the medical center in services, environmental services and facility services, is still on track to happen. Still, there's no mention of taking workers from one facility to the other and using them kind of back and forth, while the services will be sort of joined. And the silo for who's in charge goes up to Lynn Reedy, she's the EVP or Senior VP in FOD. So that's going to happen and still happening. We're still in a dispute about expedited arbitration, and that's been going on now for about 4 months or something like that. disputed that our contract language says that we will do expedited arbitration for everything except terminations. In that case, there has to be an agreement between both entities in order to do that. Somehow, beyond English, the university administration feels that means something else. That means something else. It doesn't mean what it says. It means something else. And so we'll have to arbitrate, the ability to arbitrate on an expedited sort of situation. So what that does for the union, is presently, it takes about 27 months to get something to an arbitration. About 27 months. We have to put it on the list within 10 days. Then we have to find an arbitrator. Then the arbitrator has to be committed to some kind of dates. Once those dates are committed to, then you have the hearing. It's usually a one or less, two hearings, more or less were 2 days, which costs double. Each day costs another amount. Our very last one was about 4 days, which means it costs us about 4 times the amount. And then the line grows longer. The longer the line grows, the longer your wait is. And so what expedited arbitration does is, so then you do the hearing. Then you got to do briefs on the hearing. Briefs come from both attorneys, the Attorney General's office and our office. So then you have to do the briefs. You get 30 days to do that. If something happens, it gets funky, they need an extension for that. And so that stretches it out even longer than that. Then after that, you get maybe an answer. So you want to get the answer as quickly as you can, but in that time, depending on where you are when it happened and those kinds of things, it could be 2 to 3 years. Expedited would have them probably in about 180 days. One of the features of expedited is we can do about 2 to 3 cases at one time. There are no briefs. It's a sort of what we call a bench decision. Sometimes those decisions come out that day. Sometimes the decision will come out in 10 days. But it moves the process along. What does that do? What that does is the departments have a recognition that if they break the contract, or we say they broke it, we can get a decision from a third party much, much quicker. It leverages the department to say, you know what, maybe we're wrong. Let's do something in the middle. No fault, sometimes fiscal remuneration, but what it does is it gives them a better thought pattern. And you should know that one of the best sort of movers in this is a third party making the decision. The institution, whether it's really Secretary of State's office or OSU, does not like to be corrected or forced to do something. And it's the threat of that makes it much better. So that's why we're in the dispute about expedited, because they don't want it to happen. So we have to get a third party to say this is what the contract says. And right now, since we don't have expedited to use the way we think we should, that can take 2 years.
Wow.
To get that done. So we'll have to kind of slow walk that thing until it happens, but it will happen, and it'll be another, arbitration cost. So it's long, it's slow, but it's worth it. It absolutely makes a difference in your work life when they go to change rules or just violate rules. It just makes a difference. Matter of fact, Secretary of State's office had an officer that threatened us with breaking up if we filed a grievance on information we had. The information we have is about our contract. Contract says that the state had us pay freeze, but if anybody in the state, in the Secretary of State's office, got a raise, the administrators, the supervisors, then they'd have to give a raise to the membership, regardless of the pay freeze. So it would appear that the previous administration did it anyway.
And the current.
And I think the current continues it. And so we said, hey, we want to look at the information and see what's going on. And the Assistant Secretary of State told us that while we had a good relationship, it would certainly change if we decided that we were going to do something about this issue.
What?
So,
Blackmail.
it's very close to that. It may be ULP. I hadn't decided whether that's what we go forward with. Or, well, I don't think we're going forward with that, although I believe that's what occurred. Because we're going forward in. The threat means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. We're going forward with it. We have people who, in the administration, who received a 100% raise.
What?
And more. Of course, there's less, but there's more. And so it never mattered. And that agent of the office is gone now anyway. So that's the kind of belligerent thought pattern that goes with people having rights at work. Nobody likes to pay dues. Nobody. I heard somebody say once that didn't bother me, but that's not the same as like, right? But, you know, it's rough. You know, it's kind of like when your parents pray for you, and you out there running across railroad tracks. It's not your speed that saves you. It's those prayers. You didn't hear them. You didn't know they were occurring, but you have some extra protection. And that's sort of what dues do for you. They are absolutely, not your buddy the supervisor, not that really sweet person, the administrator, not necessarily Gordon Gee, and not necessarily Husted, and not necessarily your favorite county commissioner, but they are absolutely trying to kick your ass. Absolutely. In their philosophy, in their politics, in the way that they go about doing those things. It is without exception that they want your ass kicked. As a worker, as somebody who pays rent, mortgage, car payment, insurance fees for kids trying to buy some shoes, they're trying to absolutely whoop you. And that's what dues protect. Won't catch every punch, but will help provide a duck, a counterpunch, and some protection while you're doing that, even though a lot of people don't see it. A lot of people haven't experienced it. And that's why expedited arbitration is important. And that's why we have to keep on sort of resisting to just give up. Because the onslaught is constant. You got to refuse to give up. Because they really will come after you. Nick Harris, they're just coming after him. Just really coming after him. Dave Lesher is coming right after him. And the premise that everybody talks about, has been talked about for years, hundreds of years, if you remain passive, a passive observer, you may, up front, sort of avoid dispute. But your turn is coming. Your turn is coming. As successful as they are against David or Nick or the other people who are out there, your turn is going to come. If you are a passive observer, you got to get in the fight. You actually do have a dog in that fight. You might not know that dog's name, but pretty soon the name will be yours. You can't be a passive observer. You can't let your coworkers be a passive observer. You're going to have to try to ignite them as little engines that start to realize and recognize that they are under attack. Nobody stays champion forever. Every heavyweight boxer normally takes an ass whooping before they say, you know what, maybe I can't do this anymore. We have to stay in the fight just like that. It's out there, and it's strong, and it's a social movement. Nobody likes dues, but dues are what protect you to the degree that they do. So, I implore you to exercise the rights of your contract, the morals of your convictions, and sort of a service to each other that says we got to get through this thing. So we got to reach out to one another and support one another because they are absolutely in agreement about we got to get you. From the state to the county to education to health care. It's an absolute. An absolute. So we'll come back to you on the convention report and next month, and we'll go through have another contract article. And right now, I need a motion that the President's report be approved as it's been given. Do I have such a motion? Lynn Cornegay, second. Wayne Crawford. Everybody in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The report is passed. Kelly.
Should have been just given, or you all should have in your possession, flyer that talks about so-called right to work. On that flyer, you'll see some facts that line up and talk about specific details that happen in right to work states. This week, it was announced that, which Richard has already spoken about, that there will be two separate bills in regards to the right to work, one for the private sector and one for the public sector. You just heard our President say, you have a dog in the fight. Well, I'm encouraging you, I'm asking you to get in the fight, to become politically active on this particular issue. Supposedly, the governor has stated that he's not for this at this time, or trying to remove himself from a particular issue, but I tell you not to believe that. The head of the state senate has stated that he too is not behind it. Once again, I tell you not to believe it. But it's our job to really attempt to kill it on the state floor, and not to allow it to become an amendment or something they're going to take to the ballot and redo again. You will be receiving further information in regards to how we will attack it. We'll be asking you to go out to public rallies, make phone calls, call your state senators. We ask you to ask the people that you know, your neighbors, your friends, and other people, to call their state senators also in regards to this issue. We have stated that we're going to show movies in regards to organizing and framing things and framing conversations at our next monthly meeting. You will be taught how to frame a conversation in regards to right to work. And it's very important that we come, we watch, and we learn how to properly frame it. Because depending on how you ask the question, you get a different answer, you get a different response. We cannot make it about union, which is what they're attempting to do. Because if we singularly really make it about union, then it's difficult for us to sell that. We have to make it about community. We have to make it about quality of life. We have to talk about the damages and the things that happen if such legislation is enacted. And we must get community partners, which will show you how to do those things. And in moving together, we'll be able to defeat it. We have to understand that as unions, we are down to 7% of the workforce in America. And at 7% of the workforce, there's really not much we can do. We must have partners. We must build broad coalitions. And we're asking you to get involved, help us build those coalitions, to be active in moving this fight in this right to work issue. Has everybody seen the flyer? You got any questions about it? Anything you'd like to have any extra clarity in response to? David?
Yeah, I'm just now thinking about what you're saying, and I'm looking at the flyer. For my own part, I'm not really sure this isn't about unions. To me, it seems like it's a direct attack on unions.
It is a direct.
But and I'll just go ahead and speak. It's worse than what you say. We're not down to 7%. The private sector, I think it's 6.6%. When unions were at their peak, about 35% of the population, things made much more sense in the country because periodically, if employers got out of hand, people would just throw down their tools and walk out of the factory or whatever. They would stop working. And the atmosphere was not as sharp as it is now. A right to work, the phrase, is itself an attempt, which is why the flyer says so-called right to work. It's an attempt by right-wing and right-wing rich people to destroy unions and confuse union members.
Not rich people, wealthy people.
Well, wealthy people.
I'm a rich person.
Oh, sorry.
As a matter of fact, people call me rich all the time.
Very good.
Go ahead.
I'll stand that. I stand corrected. But I did want to stand against, there's this notion in the national union and at the district level that we can't do what we're doing alone. We need all the alliances we can get with the Democrats, with the Sierra Club, with Occupy Wall Street, with any number of groups. And I agree with that. But if we don't make our own case at the local level, and if we don't stand up to unions fairly directly, we're going to be in trouble. And I noticed the first press conference out on the right to work issue, there was a guy from the union side that said, and it was repeated by Channel 4 in the media, the middle class says no. The middle class says no, referring to the battle with SB 5 that we just had. And I understand Kasich and some of the Republicans don't want to have the right to work fight right now on the ballot because it's too close to the election. If the unions start rallying their membership, the Republicans won't get the votes that they want because everybody knows the Democrats are more sympathetic to the organized labor. But it's also true that the Democrats and the Sierra Club don't get our issues. So if we don't do something as a local to fight for what the union is up to and show what dues happen to protect, I think we're in trouble. And as Rich was talking, he said dues protect. I'm not so sure it wouldn't be bad to have a bumper sticker for members of this local that just said dues protect, and being able to fill out the details of that. We could have our own right to work campaign, like right to work without extra supervision, right to work with a classification system that makes sense. We just had a grievance hearing in the storage area where the classification system is haywire, where they argued if you're not injured, if your pay is the same, and you're not going to be evaluated, we can change your job specs, your civil service job specifications as part of Article 4, right to manage. Now, I'm not sure where that stands. That was management's second level answer. But I think in a dues protect sense, civil service workers are very much protected by a local union that stands up for those issues, or stands up on the arbitration issues, or the issues that matter. And people have to know what unions are about. They're about more than what issues the middle class might raise. And I wonder when we're going to hear from the working class, if ever. And we kind of got buried during the SB 5 thing for the larger legislative and political issues. But the whole time that campaign was going on, this employer assault on organized labor was happening. And your employer is in a much better position than the Tea Party to assault you because they whittle at the loopholes in your contract, use their flexibility to do whatever they want. This past week in the stores area, which is haywire, with over-supervision and classification problems, they had a training session for forklift and power equipment that included information associates, normally a clerical title, something that this union has disputed. It included management in forklift training. I mean, everybody and their brother is is doing overlapping jobs, I would say there's no classification system at all. And I don't want to monopolize the group's time, but there's an assault going on here. We've got to acknowledge it in the course of these campaigns, which you can tell from the right to work phrase, which is a distraction in itself. They get organized labor fighting at a legislative level. We stop fighting on our own issues and publicizing what's going on. I think we're in trouble. So I think we ought to change it for our local benefits, a right to work with a classification system, a right to work without over-supervision. My new young supervisor now is basically collecting and compiling data on me as I do all the physical work as an overseer. So they install managers, administrators. They look at the fiscal side of things, go with whatever acronym or trend they've got. And meanwhile, there's an assault on union workers. I'm going on age 60 now. I don't need students and new hires making labels and doing the clerical part of my job as I do all the lifting and toting. And the argument that I haven't had an injury yet doesn't seem like a good one. The argument that I'm not going to be evaluated on anything but lifting doesn't seem to be a good one. They're making a bad case. The local's making a brave case and a good stand. One of the former presidents of this local used to refer to our local membership as a ragtag army. And I think that was his endearing way of talking about the strength of this local. Even though we're a small percentage of people on campus, if we know what we're doing and if we fight in an inspired way, I think we can bring publicity and shed some light on things. I'm totally with destroying the Right to Work initiative, but I think the local ought to press its own issues during the course of the campaign. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you a lot.
Okay. I'd like to address an issue that seems to be, well, something we can't really turn around, and it's participation. This looks awful weak for participation of union members. See, I'm a card-carrying, dues-paying member of this union, but I can't see enough people in here to call this a representation of the public worker. Now, we have a policy, they have a policy at Ohio State University right now. They're hiring a lot of foreigners. I'm talking about Somalis, East Africans, all these foreigners that are being hired in, but they don't participate. The union, I believe, should be addressing these new employees and then educating them about what the union is here for. Because as historically has been shown, by the blocks, how many of them are in here today participating? None of them. We need to get to this block of employees to get them to understand what a union is about so that we can get to participation, so that when you go up against legislators and lawyers and all these other people that are getting $1 million raises in the administration of Ohio State, we need enough of a block to go up against them by participation. Don't wait until the 11th hour before you start negotiating a contract. Start now. Educating your union members. They're paid their dues, but they're not represented because they don't understand. They're happy to have a job, of course. We're all glad to have a job. But unless we get our members to participate, all of this is for moot. You guys are crippled. You guys are restricted. You guys can't really get the issues taken care of without the union member participation. And you got to learn, and this is part of what OSU is doing. They're dwindling down. They're watering down the union representation by having these people that really don't participate. I'm talking about people that have been at OSU for years and years. They don't participate and address them. But in addressing them, go after this large block of people that could be representative of the union instead of just collecting a paycheck from going on. That's what I would like to have on an agenda something to address and target these people so that they will understand what the American way is about. The American way is about unions. I participated in many other unions, working over my 63 years of working. Teamsters, school board, all of these different unions. And they had a large participation before the 11th hour of the contract. Without the participation, you're weak. Without a show of hands, a show of bodies in here, you're weak. When it comes time to vote, it's just you guys all by yourselves. If we can get our people to come in here and participate, I'm talking about union members, you have the right to address and target your members to try and get them in here. So I'm saying, to strengthen our union, we need these people to participate, all of them. If you're paying your dues, you ought to get your money's worth. So if they're not participating, well, that's my bottom line. We need to address more of your members to come in here and participate, understand what we're about, so we can start pushing through more issues than what you're allowed to do at this point.
Excuse me, sir, I didn't get your name for the record.
James T. Anderson, FOD, third shift.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Go.
Yeah, excuse me. My name is Wade Crawford. I'm the Heat Board member. I'm with Student Life. May 16th, which is on a Thursday, they're going to have what Kevin was talking about, just talked about recently, is right to work training. It's going to be held up at the Carpenter's Hall. What's that? 1546 Allen Creek Drive? Allen Creek Drive. Between 5:30 and 8 o'clock. Dinner is going to be served between 5:30 and 6.
5:30.
That'll be a good time for you guys to get educated on right to work for those who not really told the school don't like right to work, so you know how to tackle it. I'm planning on being there.
Can you state the date again? Because I think we have two different dates. We got 18 and the 16. What's the date?
It'll be May 16th.
So what is the one on the 18th?
One on the 18th would be,
Because that was, you reported that to the e-board, and that is also a right-to-work training on Allen Creek, so we need to know which date is which.
I would believe, that would be,
I think you can put your hand up.
I just haven't had the text message from the FLCIF on that.
My name is Lynn Cornegate, Student Life. What I've noticed in the workforce is the new hires that they bring in, I think that they do a good head job on them before they even hire them against getting involved with the union. You notice that, and then the new hirees in our department has an IOU to the people employing them, because if you have that nepotism, because a lot of them are family. So if the bosses are against the union, they're coming in and they're against the union. And when you talk to them in union meetings in morning meetings about issues that they allow you to address, then you have administration, bosses and them going against and saying negative things in the meeting against the union. So that doesn't do us any good either, as far as trying to enforce and push the union on them when they've been indoctrinated and coming in that they have to stand on the line and not really get involved. I don't want them to know that they're even involved in talking to you about the union. So that's the new way, and they call it hiring smart. That's what their title, hiring smart.
Just wanted to speak to the gentleman up in the front. I think we actually reach out a lot. We actually go to some orientations to try to get the members actually when they're coming in, so they know about their union, know where their union is located, know they can come over for these meetings. I talk to people daily, but the way you sit up there and talk, maybe you can reach out to some of your coworkers also, because there's only so much we can do. Maybe they listen to a coworker a lot better than what they listen to us, so we want the participation also, and I just wanted to say we do reach out.
Well, my problem,
When we're gonna go on over, we'll get you the next day.
Yeah, I think we don't want to be passive about going into this right-to-work training, because if it's all top-down training of us on what we're going to say and the talking points going door to door, I think it'll be like the SB5 campaign, and we won't get local organizing mileage out of it. So I propose to get participation ramped up in, is it James?
Yes.
In the terms James is talking about, why don't we have a right to work to get people actually aboard here at Ohio State? And to that end, I've called and left messages before about some of the temporaries that are working. Jason Minter, Hakeem Valentine, Dennis Valentine, and Corey Benson. Our contract says in Article 14, if management decides to fill a position, they have to post it. They've worked these guys in some cases more than a year. Corey Benson is at forklift training. Why aren't these jobs posted as civil service union jobs? If we're going to fight for right to work, we should be arguing our Article 14 should enable these people to have a right to work, and we could show through inspiration, hope, and fight and some offensive capability that there's reasons that dues protect and that people can participate and have that have a meaning. So I'd like to read those names into the record if I could, because I've left them in messages a few times.
Don't
Okay.
give them to her afterwards. She'll
Okay.
put in the record.
I will do that.
But to make
These
sure you
people
give
all
them.
want a job, but because of what Lynn Cornegay is talking about, management kind of has a shock and awe campaign when it comes to union members. For example, with the merit pay issue, we had a EEOC hearing. I presented notes. I tried to make my best effort to do a collaborative job to maintain an exceeds rating with management. They have no specifications for my job. Not only that, they've degraded my job in terms of my civil service specifications. The union has fought that. So we could go to this training for right to work with the idea that we have a classification system. We have the right to work with a classification system. Or we have the right to work without excess supervision. Now, it's illegal for unions to bargain on the amount of management at a workplace, and the size and composition of the workforce is management's business. But this could be a legislative issue for politicians who might be concerned about the right to work. Do they want to create excess supervisory jobs and an additional layer of middle management? Ohio State had a streamlining effort on campus to lower the amount of administration and management they had on main campus. When that got to West Campus, that went full speed reverse. We've got top paid managers, overseers for the operation who make more than any previous managers ever did. There's a top-heavy plague in Ohio State. It's a toxic work environment. They don't even want to hear from employees because they've hired top-paid people with great titles. They told me the other day, no more multi-paragraph emails. It shows you don't have enough work to do. Even when they ask for input, they act like that. So they need servile workers, temporaries, contracted employees. Those people should have a right to have regular union jobs, and that should be our right to work issue that we take to the table rather than going to figure out a scripted thing from advocates for the middle class. When are we going to hear from the working class? That's who unions are here to protect. The people who sell their labor power for a wage, the people who produce the value and provide the services. When we get participation from the working class, when working people speak out and participate, And it's true, we've tried to approach them, but we need to make that fight again and again. Until we hear from workers, nothing will change. We'll hear from politicians. It's kind of like giving money to banks to stimulate the economy. You give the money to the banks, next thing you find out, they aren't loaning money to people who need it, and they're taking trips overseas with little travel junkets, preserving exactly what they've got. The working class has different interests than the middle class. It's just an economic bracket. The working class is really in a pickle and a predicament. So I say, if we go to any right-to-work training, we should have our own script. We should tailor that script to what we need in this local, and hope that the district and some of the connections that David made and Rich made at convention will pay off for us as a local, because the membership brings sense to what the union movement does. Things should move up from the top rather than down from the bottom. Thanks for listening.
Point of order. We need a point of order, we need a motion to extend. Wayne Crawford, David Gutierrez.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
The motion's passed. I heard it.
Y'all just keep it simple. Y'all won't be here today.
I have a time for that meeting. It's May 16th from 5:30 to 7 at the Carpenters Union Local 21545 Allen Creek Drive.
Can you state the date again?
May
May
16th.
16th.
Dinner will be served between 5:30 and 6.
5:30 to 7.
5:37?
Yeah.
Okay, do the time again?
5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
And the address for the Carpenter Union?
1545 Allen Creek Drive.
In the battle that we happen to be in, it is not a matter of one or the other. We plain and simply have to do and fight everywhere. So we can't select a strategy that says we will just concentrate here. CWA Triangle, which we need to bring it out so you can understand, speaks about the three sides in which we work from as a CWA unit and as how we go out and march. But when people create legislation that often takes away our contractual rights and suppress people, take away our civil rights and civil liberties, we have to have a message that responds to a broad group,
Right.
not a small sector, because it comes down to votes.
Right.
So if all you talk to is a small sector, they know you will lose. That is even the attempt to have two separate bills. They find ways to divide us. So we cannot come with a strategy that divides also. We must move collectively together as people. That must occur. Stand Up for Hire is one of those coalitions in which we work with, that functions and has many of their meetings right here in this local. We talk about the devastating effects of what low wages and the fact that what those wages will do to cripple the communities, which if we go out and speak to people and all we're talking about is classification, supervisors on the job, there is an image that we as public workers have that we have it better than other people. So we have to be able to sell and get people to understand that to destroy these particular things destroys their communities, destroys their ability to run their business, destroys their ability to be able to sell the products and the wares in which they have. We must connect the dots from one group to the other. That's why we must build coalition. That's why we must learn to move together, to get everybody to see that we all have some skin in the game. So we must And we will build coalitions, go from one group to the other, because often we have to fight this in a political arena, not here. Yes, we have to energize, move, get engaged to help strengthen that broad fight. That's what we have to do. But we have to understand that if we don't have the voting power, that we cannot survive. So we must build coalitions. We must have a message that touches everybody, to get people to see how we are connected. And to do something contrary to that is to help defeat ourselves. And they want to pit us one against another, and we have to stop that and not let them get away with that strategy. So when we ask you to come to the meetings, to come to understand, to learn how to frame your conversation, how to get someone to see how your issue is connected to them and the devastating effects it will have on this nation, this state, their welfare. Then gets them to go to the booth to cast the vote that you need. So I encourage you to come, learn the training, come to understand the point of view, why we build coalitions, why they are necessary. Come and see it. That issue was not adopted because, plain and simply, it just came out of nowhere. It was adopted so that we could strengthen our fight. And it's something we must do. So in coming to learn, you talked about training and educating people. Come and learn why we do and why we are moving the way in which we deem we have to move. Come and see this point of view. Learn how to frame the conversation. See how the dots are connected. Come and see the point of view. Yes, we need to energize on a local level. But to get you energized, so once you can go out and help move this battle. Because to kill the union then allows them to totally destroy the rest of the country. Which is the ultimate plan. I recognize you. I just want to say that David is correct in that, Kevin is correct in that, Mr. Anderson is correct in that. What we are, that I don't want you to forget in all of that, remember it all, but remember this about legislation and our work groups. We represent a lot of different groups. All of them are workers. All of them have particular challenges. But what we all are public workers. And more than ever, as a public worker, legislation and politics rules your workday. You've got to participate in it, as Kevin said. You have to draw the population, as Mr. Anderson said. You've got to pay attention to your particulars as they go to the grander idea, as David said. I've always said this, and it remains true. We have to do it all at one time. We just can't isolate. I'm done with that because you heard it from Kevin, you heard it from David, and you heard it from Mr. Anderson. And you heard it from Miracle about our outreach initiatives. Not to give any less account to our communication team, which has provided us with 10 ways of touch points. But like Mr. Anderson said also, people pay their electric bill. They expect to have electric. When the lights go out, they make a call. What we've been used to doing is not making a call. As members, we just complain because it's dark. That is illogical behavior. You don't do it with your electric bill. You just paid your bill, light go out, you call them. You got to, everybody has to make that collective call and take action. That's the way it's done at home. It's the way it should be done at work. We are public workers. We have to pay attention to everything as it goes along.
Wayne?
First of all, and also too, in order to defeat this bill, like Kevin said, Richard said, you got to learn how to defeat that bill. You know, because there's a lot of people who don't know how to defeat that bill. And just by being as one entity is not going to cut it. It's going to take people to make this bill be defeated. Because actually, to be true about it, it's not just only really a union issue. It's mostly a people issue, because we are people. And as people, they're out to destroy us.
Go ahead, Wayne. Are you done?
That's it, I'll be done.
Okay. David?
Like I said earlier, I apologize. I mean, I wasn't prepared to talk earlier, but I mean, I got 7 pages of notes here from the meeting, or convention, I should say, but just to touch on a couple things as you all have been talking. President Larry Cohen brought this up, that the United States is only at 12%. Japan, South Africa, Germany are ahead of the United States when it comes to unions.
Right.
We're behind those. I mean, we're only at 12%. It's pretty sad, considering that we're the United States. Another thing is Daniel Rivera brought up, he's the one that brought up about building 50 million strong, and he touched about some of the things that everybody has been talking here, that it's just not the unions, communities, you know, your neighbors, relatives. You need to get everybody involved with you as well, and get educated. As you all saying, you need to educate everybody. It's not just the union members. Another thing, as this gentleman brought up, that we need to get more people involved. I mean, look how many people are here. It's usually the same faces, month after month. Another thing is, by that, your airway agents lost by 117 votes. And that's because people weren't showing up, getting educated. They lost by 117 votes.
How many were in the vote?
That they didn't mention.
They did.
They did. I missed
4,000.
4,000? Okay, I apologize. I didn't.
That's okay.
I'll add to it.
It might be higher, but it's like thousands. They only lost by 100.
Correct. And just real quick, there's 960 locals. Okay. As far as the members, I found the member real quick. I wrote this down. We were at 750,000 members. We went down. Approved for the board. You should have one of the late submission.
Okay.
So I need to do that. Is it okay if, because you made the motion, if we do that and then have the drawing and then conclude?
Okay.
Is it so?
It is.
Okay, is that second?
Yes.
The amended motion? All in favor of said motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, that's how we'll proceed. Before you have the minutes from the executive board meeting from April. Is it April?
April 4th.
Questions, comments, concerns?
I would like to have, you see, I'm a guerrilla fighter. So what I would like to have is a language, you know, something that I can pass out so that people will understand, you know, where I'm coming from, so that they will, I need interpreters. I'm working on getting interpreters for these foreign groups, you know. I don't necessarily speak the language, Brenda. You know, I need something in a language that I can present to other people so I can enlist more guerrilla fighters.
I got it.
To get down underneath and underneath the administration's, you know, strong arm tactics, so we can educate our people.
You're out of order. I'm asking for approval of those minutes, but I will take what you said and we'll do that.
Okay.
I'll probably have to call you. Make sure you give her your number.
I got my number.
Okay.
I make a,
I'm in the middle of asking if there are questions, concerns, or comments about the report. Once. Twice. Mike, Dave Lesher.
I think what James might be saying is he might...
If it is not in this report, I don't want to hear it, you're out of order. I'm asking for this report, approval for this report.
I mean, if you let me finish the sentence,
Go right
I
ahead.
can bring it to relevance.
I'll let you finish the paragraph as long as it relates to that. Go ahead.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. I'm thinking James might have looked at this report and thought, I need something I can hand out as a guerrilla fighter to people I want to inform
I
and
understood
want
him
to
perfectly.
participate in membership.
I understood.
So his question might be framed, how can this report be made into something we could pass
That
out to
report can't
members?
be made today. We can make what he's talking about. We can make that specifically. I understood what he said. He's perfectly articulate. But I'm saying I'm asking for approval of this report as a matter of business and taking care of it.
Oh, I thought you were going for questions as well.
No, sir. Hearing none, I need a motion that this report be approved as it's given. Do I have it? Lynn Cornegay. Do I have a second? Nick Harrison. All in favor of said motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. I'm still not taking questions. I understood him perfectly. Don't worry about it. You're fine. Now, the motion was to do that and then have the drawing and then conclude.
Thank you.
The motion that you guys approved, actually.
First number ends with 0155. $50. 0155.
Cliff Harrison?
Come on. My legs are hurt.
Really? Okay.
I'll take his money. Oh, hey, May, take $5 out of that check for that phone ringing. That was his phone ringing.
He only get 45 because he owes $5 for that cell phone.
Cell phone interruption.
What?
Yeah.
Second number is 0154.
Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you. Put your hand in there, Fred. Put it up. Okay.
You know, Fred, your name was appeared on television. You need to take somebody to lunch.
Grand prize, $75, 0156.
Right in your room.
I know we get lunch. Get out, David. David.
The ticket was given to James and he's the visitor. Go back to the top.
You're not taking it?
Lolita!
Well, I mean, to the union.
Oh, you want to donate it back to the union?
Back to the union.